Hey everybody, before we get started, I just want to remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons, like Hijikata Comics, KOHA, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, and Nestor Flores. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it'll help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll a 5-star. So, in a perfect follow-up to our last episode of Wanted, where we talked about Okita Soji, we'll be talking about a different Shinsengumi guy today. We're going to be talking about Hijikata Toshizo, the demonic vice commander. That'll probably be the subtitle for the episode. I don't know, I haven't made it yet. So anyway, yeah, we're going to talk about Hijikata today. And because he is a limited, we're going to do our classic, format, 4 parts. We're going to talk about their IRL history, their in-game lore with a capital L. We're going to talk about their mechanics, and we're going to talk about their rarity. And we'll also, somewhere in there, talk about synergy and support and stuff, which is actually kind of important for Hijikata, for reasons. But we're going to talk about that later. So, well, without further ado, since I'm actually going to split the graphics on this, because there's a public domain photo, YouTube. Don't get mad. It's a public domain photo. It was public domain in Japan for, like, forever, and the US before that, because apparently our copyright laws didn't overlap. Thanks, Wikipedia. Anyway, first, let's talk about the background, the real-life background of the Mr. Hijikata Toshizo. So, interesting enough, according to historical data, Hijikata was the youngest member of an incredibly large family, the youngest of possibly 10 children, according to more current records that we found. His father was a well-to-do farmer, but he died before Hijikata was born. And his mother died when he was about 6, so he's went through some family trials and tribulations. So supposedly he spent his youth selling his family's medical business. They were a type of medicine for treating injuries such as bruises and broken bones while self-teaching kenjutsu. And then later, his brother-in-law managed a dojin of the Tenin Urishi no Ryu style, which, if I'm not mistaken, was also the style originated by used by Okita originally, and learned there. He never fully mastered it, but it said that Hijikata used this information as a foundation to form the kenjutsu style of the Shinsengumi from then. And there are some interesting historical anecdotes. He was said to be handsome and exceptionally tall. Supposedly he was spoiled and mean early in his life, but when he was around 21 years old, he or rather, when somebody else was 21 years old. Sorry, I'm double checking some fact notes from like Wikipedia, and I'm like, this is poorly organized for my bullet points I copied. Anyway, he attended a funeral of a guy who died young, and apparently cried in public. So he was sensitive too. Another fun facto: he was actually arranged to marry a woman, but later, when he became the vice commander of the Shinsengumi, he put off his arranged marriage because he knew that he would be in a very dangerous situation. And yeah, so he joined the Rushigumi, which became the Shinsengumi. We're not going to go over more of the Shinsengumi details because you can review that in the Okita segment. And there's also, like I said, a lot of Japanese pop cultural stuff about this. But basically, he inherited the position of vice commander after the previous holder tried to leave and committed seppuku, and was part of the Shinsengumi forces through that period. Hijikata was known to be harsh in enforcing the rules and regulations of the Shinsengumi, which is why he was called the Demon Vice Commander, because he was kind of the vice principal, so he was the disciplinarian. And of course, then he served in the Boshin War, the kind of civil war that emerged afterwards, and lasted a good deal long time, fighting forces and attempting to join the Republic of Izo before ultimately dying. Before he died, he summoned his page and gave him his katana, his death poem, a letter, and a photograph. And his death poem reads, Though my body may decay on the island of Izo, my spirit guards my lord in the east. And then it was reported that shortly after that, several days later, he was killed while leading his troops. He was shot by a bullet and injured. So they persisted for a while, moving towards the Republic of Izo, and he, had some military exploits there. But that's the sort of thing that you can find a lot more about if you, read a book, watch a movie or something. But it's kind of an interesting story he has, right? Like, he started from effectively working class, self-taught swordsmanship, worked his way up to actually being vice commander of a powerful force and, leading a squad of men into war, and persisting even after the shogunate was deposed. So, in Fate, as far as I know anyway, Hijikata obviously is mentioned with Okita, so because they knew each other in life, but I don't think he actually... Let me see, hold on. What's his appearance marked as? Origin, history, region, pen, yeah. As far as I know, he did not directly appear. He's referenced in other works. But let's see, did he have any appearances in the comics that would found the GUDAGUDA event? Okay, so a quick double check. No, he did not have any direct appearances, though mentioning him being linked to Okita, through one of her noble phantasms, he did appear in Fate KOHA-Ace as kind of a ghosty man to help her fight Demon Archer, aka Nobu. But yeah, so mostly look forward to seeing Hijikata as a major character on his own in the upcoming GUDAGUDA Meiji Ishin event, and then possibly some future cameos and stuff where other stuff happens. Alright, well, I'm going to do a graphical transition now, and then we're going to talk about mechanics. So, Hijikata is a 5-star Berserker. You can look at his core attack and HP stats, which are remarkably similar, fairly well balanced. So, for attack, Hijikata kind of sits in a weird island. His attack is significantly below Sakata Kintoki and Ku Alter. They have, like 700 or 800 more points than him. But in turn, he's a good, 400 or 500 points higher than the next lowest ranks at, like, Zhang Yu and Raiko, who are both AoE blasters. Similarly, Vlad's a little bit below him, too, like that. So he's kind of in a weird, like I said, island space. For HP, he is sadly at the lowest, so... Yeah, that works in his benefit. We'll talk some about his special mechanics in a sense, but also, whoo baby, you're riding some dangerous lines there. So, let's talk about other stuff. He's a Berserker, so, hey, his star gen's not super great. His star absorb isn't really good. Has pretty decent NP charge on defense, and has fairly high NP charge per attack, but that's because he has 1 arts card, and it has 2 hit counts. So... The 1.0 is probably pretty normal. He does have 2 quick cards with 3 hits, so that's an okay amount. But yeah, you're not gonna have an easy breezy time of charging his NP. So there's not much else to talk about with his core stats. But like I said, you can see his hit counts, which are pretty low. He's quick, arts, buster, so he's not a pure buster gorilla. He does have a couple quick cards in there, and he does have some options to increase some other stuff in there. So it's not unheard of. A decent, but not super spectacular number of extra attack hits. Most people, you think, oh, extra attack, that's the best one. It's okay. So his Noble Phantasm is going to kind of reveal what his special MO is. So it's a single target. And normally it just deals normal buster single target damage. It's got a few hit counts. But then it's got a special overcharge thing. So it deals extra damage to the target based on his remaining HP. And the formula is basically... the multiplier of his overcharge, which is normally his normal NP damage again, damage multiplier, times 1 minus the current HP divided by max HP. So basically, how much HP he is missing, multiplied by his damage multiplier again, deals additional damage. So the closer he is to death, and obviously the higher his HP in total is, the more extra damage he does. But that means that you have to have low current HP, which is kind of a problem because he doesn't have it. He don't have a lot of it. So yeah, that's his primary gimmick is he, similar to kind of Ann and Mary, he wants to be a little bit lower HP. A little bit lower, but not too low, because then you die. And he doesn't really have a good way to do not dying. But we'll cover his skills in just a second. So, top of those skills, he's got Demon of the Battlefield B. This is an interesting one. So, it gives all allies Buster up and all allies critical star drip up. 5-turn cooldown, maximum 20%. So, this trades maximum efficiency for team effect, which for Berserker I think is a little weird. He does kind of want team supporters to keep him going, like he needs other people to help him charge his NP. And while he's got a couple quick cards, and obviously this would give him a 20% star generator buff, Berserkers are not really star generators, so, you know, you might want to put somebody else in there to fuel crits because of a third thing we're going to talk about in a second. But, yeah, in terms of a damage-dealing Berserker, the fact that it spreads out is a little soft, but if you're using multiple Berserkers in conjunction, or just multiple damage dealers, depending on what you're doing, you know, Berserkers are kind of a general-purpose damage dealer. You can actually use it to spread out, but, like I said, it's only got 20%. Otherwise, other than the slightly interesting combination of Star Drop plus Buster, not super impressive. His second skill isn't super impressive either, but it does kind of help a little bit. So he's got Disengage C, it's a 5-turn cooldown. You can remove your debuffs, which, as you know, for damage dealers is very important, because you really don't want to be doing anything that's going to reduce your damage potential at all. And you also don't want debuffs where you take more damage, especially on Hijikata, because you probably want to be controlling how much damage you're taking, right? Like, you want to be in control of that situation. The heal isn't great. It's only 1,500, but it's on a 5-turn cooldown, so it helps a little bit to get you going. You're definitely going to want to max it out, though, because the 500 for level 1 is, like, nothing. The dude has 12,000 HP. 500, no big deal. But then we get to his third skill, which is very uniquely him. And you'll see why. So step 1, you get a 3-turn critical star rate increase, up to 4,000%. And second off, it increases your critical strength by 20% to 100% for 3 turns, which is basically 80 times 1 minus the HP divided by HP max. You know, how much HP you have left out of your maximum number. So, if you're at max HP, your ratio would still start at 20%, but if you start losing, that starts going up to, obviously, if you have 1 HP, you will add 80%, so 100% doubles your critical damage for 3 turns, by the way. I assume that's when the buff is calculated. Oh, and did I mention this does 1,000 damage to yourself, which is normally a demerit. But in future cases, now it should note, especially notes here, this doesn't apply to the damage for this buff. But for a character like Hijikata, and also especially if you're within 1,000 HP of 1, like you're already getting pretty close to your full damage up. But it can't reduce his HP below 1, which means that if you're using this on a big, I don't know, NP Buster turn with your big crits, you can do a lot of extra damage on that NP. So yeah, and this is all for 3 turns, so if you immediately healify him after, you know, like if you let him blow his load, especially because if you're not using the NP, you can then heal him up and the buffs will stick around for a little bit. And for passive skills, he just has Madness Enhancement D. So, overall, Hijikata is pretty good if you can manage those HP bars. You got to be very careful. He's not like, say, Ku Alter, who is remarkably durable, despite the fact that he's, you know, a huge attack stat. Hijikata is kind of deliberately fragile. He doesn't recover a lot on his heals. He damages himself with one of his skills. He wants to be low HP, but you're going to want to, like, watch when that is. So, you know, obviously being Buster Crit, Merlin makes a great support, that sort of stuff. You know, Waiver works for anybody to kind of, like, get his NP bar charged and give him extra critical strength when those crits want to drop. So you're going to want to give him a support team who can heal him or otherwise keep him alive. Given Irie and Medea are dedicated healers, you know, he works great if you're trying to beat up assassin bosses, right? Because casters aren't really great at damage. So you can use him as a assassin boss killer. and then use the fact that you've got healers to try and keep him alive. You know, Irie's Guts is pretty good for this sort of strat. The downside is he's all Buster Crit. He's all big single... Well, not really single, because his critical strength can stretch out over a few turns. But obviously, the ideal big swing is, like I said, NP Buster Buster with all buffs going. Which is not great in the upcoming and the continue to becoming, I should say, break gauge meta. For instance, if you want to use Hijikata to beat up Hijikata in the challenge quest in GUDAGUDA 2, that dude has, what is it, like over 2 million HP, over 4 bars. And since break gauges are shittier than regular HP bars, it's a huge pain in the ass. Now, he tries to compensate with this for having his major buffs be over 3 turns, not 1. But he's still got that big damage NP, so I don't know. That's going to depend on how consistently you can get those stars generating, you know. It's pretty easy to throw a guy out there with some fragments, but yeah, you're really going to want to capitalize on him. So it's like I said, it's a razor's edge kind of problem. You have to dance along this fine line of, okay, keep the HP low, but not low enough that you die, which probably stuff like evades or invincibles will work. I would actually not say, unless you have some way to hurt him otherwise, don't actually put Volumen on him, because he needs to take hits. You need to activate invincibilities or evades later when you're trying to keep him alive to actually deal his damage. In general, probably just Buster Strength up, Critical Strength up, you know, that kind of stuff, which makes him better. You could give him more star generation, I guess. Damage Cut's a good thing to give him so he doesn't die as fast, you know, or defensive ups, that sort of stuff. The one like Super Kirei CE is probably pretty good for this. Or depending on your opponent, you can do the stuff that's like special damage versus male or, you know, special defense up versus male or female or stuff. He can be pretty potent if you can figure out the right time to use his skills and the right time to let him fire off, but there are going to be times when RNG is going to go bad for you, and he's just going to get wasted like 1 turn before you were ready for your perfect setup, and then you're out a lot of resources. So, in terms of mechanics, I think he's you know, high risk, high reward kind of gameplay, if you're into that sort of thing. If you prefer to cruise control, there's a lot safer damage dealers, like the aforementioned Ku Alter, who can actually survive a lot of rough and tumble, and Hijikata will outdamage those guys when he's high, when you get that high reward, but he can also fold pretty badly on that high risk situation. You're going to want to like I said, pick CEs and team members carefully. Alright? And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, because his buffs last 3 turns, he's a little bit better at managing the break bar problem, but still, that means how many consistent turns are you going to be generating that much crit and getting his cards, right? Now, when Summer BB comes out and she can freeze the cards, you could set up some really gnarly turns, assuming you can keep him alive with somebody else on the team. But yeah, and then let's talk about Rarity really quick. So, Hijikata is actually pretty rare. There's the upcoming GUDAGUDA Meiji Ishin banner. And then there is the aforementioned, we talked about this with Okita, what was the Kyomafu 2017 exhibit summoning campaign, which has Okita, Hijikata, and a couple of, well, not a couple, but a handful of other Japanese servants. That's later. That should be later this year, but I have no idea if they're actually going to do it in that style. So the banner should probably come, but I have no idea what it will be called or when it will drop. And he will return, of course, when GUDAGUDA Meiji Ishin gets a rerun next year. So that's Hijikata. He's a pretty interesting character in character design terms, and his mechanics are pretty interesting. Like I said, I don't know if I'm into that high risk, high reward style, you know, but if you are, he can really make those criticals and those buster blows shine. Just that that is going to be kind of a discouraged thing if you can't think a couple turns ahead of time. So, ironically, despite being a Berserker, he's a real thinking man's servant. You got to plan carefully. Pick your plays. All right. Well, that about wraps up this episode of Wanted. We've covered all the 4 bases. I don't need to go back and re-record anything later. Whoopsie. So let's go ahead and wind this down. And I'll say the usual. If you like this video, give it a like. If you have any comments on anything, leave them in the comment section down below. You can also check out our Discord. The link is in the description. And also on our channel now. And do subscribe if you want more Wanted videos or more FGO videos. And don't forget that bell for notifications so you always know when we post a new video. And make sure to check out Let's Talk FGO, where I'm sure we'll talk about this kind of stuff in detail later. And like it says at the front of the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. You could have gotten this episode a whole day early. And other stuff. And it would really help us out. And yeah, I'll see you guys whenever the next video is. I have to double check the schedule about what the next Wanted is. I know CCC is up in here somewhere in the not too distant future, but I'm not sure where. That's going to be hopefully not too crowded, but possibly a slightly crowded. Not that I want to pre-work on that because I don't even know if, like, I don't actually know. Well, I concur that Meltrillus is probably the better translation of her name. I don't actually know what we're going to go with. So we'll see. And yeah, I don't think of any prominent banners that'll go in the background there. So yeah, look forward to other stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks everybody for your time.